Hello techies, welcome back to Techie Uday. In last series of videos, we have been seeing what is recursion, what is a function execution flow, and how function behaves when you call it from a main method, and how the execution flow works. All these topics we have covered so far. We have also covered what is recursion and what are different types of recursions, what is head recursion, what is tail recursion, and what is the body recursion, and we have seen few problems as well. We have another type of recursion, that is indirect recursion. What is indirect recursion and where we can use that indirect recursion in problem solving? Let's see that in this video. Indirect recursion. Generally, what is recursion means? A method calling itself is called recursion. But is it only means recursion? Recursion means triggering a chain of actions with a terminal point, that is called base case here. Not only with a single method, we can use different methods to trigger this chain of actions. For example, if I call a method A from the main function and method A is calling method B, and method B in its logic is again calling method A. So method A calls B and B calls A calls B. This triggers a chain of actions and this is called indirect recursion. We need to have a terminal point in both the methods. In method A we should have a terminal point and in method B we should also have terminal point. Those terminal points are base cases in the respective methods. In which scenarios we can use this indirect recursion? Scenarios like when you need to decide on a chain of actions based on two or more conditions, like if you check a number is even or odd. This scenario can be easily solved by using a modular division. However, if you are solving that using the recursive method, how we can do that? We can convert finding a method is even or odd into this indirect recursion. Let's see that in example. I'm creating class indirect recursion. I'll share you the GitHub repository in the description below. You can get the GitHub repository there. I've created a class indirect recursion and I am writing a method. Let's call those as a static method. Now to start. I'm creating a method that returns a boolean is even. So I'm calling a method is even. Is even we can directly do it in this way, nums mod2 equal to 0, that directly gives us, but I'm trying to do that using recursive function to demonstrate indirect recursion, right? If num equal to 0, I'm returning is even, num equal to 0, it should be false. Else, return is odd, num minus 1, right? Private. Another function I'm defining is odd. If num equal to 0, I'm returning false. I'm returning is even of num minus 1. So what we are doing here, I have a method is even. It checks whether the number is 0. If it is 0, since 0 is an even number, it's returning true. If it is not 0, we are calling a method called isOdd with the argument num minus 1. We are calling the method isOdd with the argument num minus 1. So this method has been called here. In this method, I'm again checking if the number is 0. If the number is 0, of course it is not even. We should return false. And if it is not 0, I'm calling the isEven method with again value nums minus 1. Let's see how this method works in a main method. I'm calling that method with 11 as an argument. Right? I'm printing this as well. Two methods. I'm calling this method twice. Indirect recursion is even. I'm calling the method with argument 12. And if it is true, I'm printing it is even or else odd. Here, if it is true, I'm printing odd or else even. Let's put a debug point and see what is actually happening in the indirect recursion. As expected, we are here. And here, what is the n value? Num's value is, if the num's value is 0, we are returning true, otherwise we are calling is odd method here. I've called this method, if I see the recursion stack here, from the main method I have called the isEven method. If I go back here and see, the main method is waiting on this line to continue further. As I've already explained you in my previous video how this execution flow works, please go and check those videos to get better understanding this function execution flow and how the function behaves and what is the core concepts of recursion and everything I have explained in my previous videos. Please check that before continuing further. But to explain this more clearly, the main method execution got blocked here to complete this method execution. This method is now on this line. When I continue the execution further, this method is calling isOdd method. Now this method is stopped its execution here at this point, and it's waiting for isOdd method to complete. And now it is equal to 0. No, it's not equal to 0, so it won't return. It again call back isEven method, right? IsEven is called back now with argument of Chen. We call the method with argument of 12. Now for this call, the nums value is 12. For this call, the nums value is 12. For this call, the nums value is 11. For this call, the nums value is 10. So in each step, you can see the nums value keep on decreasing, and the function call toggles between isEven and isOdd. So one function call the other, that function call this. The recursion stack is going here. isEven is calling isOdd is calling isEven till it reaches the base case. The recursion stack grows on. Let's see. Now here comes the base case. IsEven method is returning true for to which method it is returning. This is returning true for the method isOdd, and this true will be returned to this, and this true will be returned to this, and on each call, one method call pops out of the call stack. You can observe here. So on each call, one method pops out, and finally the control transfers to our main function call, and here is our result. 12 is even. Now again the same loop triggers for isOdd method. Now isOdd method has been called with the argument of 11, and now isOdd calls isEven. So this keep on goes till we reach the base case, and finally the same call stack pops out and we got the result. So this is the type of indirect recursion. In this indirect recursion, one function calls the other function and the other function calls the first function. This triggers a chain of actions that leads to an indirect recursion. This is one example of indirect recursion. There are a few other more examples like in DFS algorithms. While exploring a path, we may go in one path. In that path, we may do some other actions, and in those actions, from there we may need to check the other paths. So this triggers to an indirect recursion. We will get more clarity while we are solving the problems using the recursion. In the coming topics like arrays, strings, and trees, we should use this type of indirect recursions and the direct recursions. We will get more clarity on how to apply this recursion, all the recursion types, how to use them. We will get more clarity in our coming. Hope you understand what is the indirect recursion. And in our coming videos, we will see few problems on this recursion to understand the recursion better. Hope you understand. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.